Not to be like the world, and not to be like the great majority of American Christians, but to be like Jesus Christ. I don't know why you're clapping. I'm talking about you.
What's wrong with you people? I'm serious.
You can't say amen, you ought to say ouch.
Hello, Humblebees. Welcome to Tulips and Honey.
Hi, Humblebees. Welcome back to Tulips and Honey. I'm your host, Lauren, and I'm joined today by my super sweet co-host, Becca. And as you will notice, if you are among our YouTube watching audience, Becca has a little surprise today.
Yeah, I have a background. I have a virtual background. It's the Nutcracker. That sounds like a drum roll. I love it.
Sorry. My phone fell because I was shaking in my seat. So we don't usually record this late at night, guys, but we are recording at night, and so it's going to be a little more silly than usual.
It is.
You're not used
but
to
that's what this episode started out as. Like, we were like, what are some what are some funny Reformed things that Reformed people say?
That's
Forty. I love it.
Reformed and funny.
You heard it here on Tulips and Honey.
That's right. We forgot our name.
It's T&H.
It's not even that late. Like, there's no excuse.
I know.
It's
6:30 for me. It's 7:30.
That's so bad. Okay. Anyways, so today's episode, Becca, will you help me because I'm going to be super unfocused right now. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, today we are going over different Reformed lingo that people say that maybe you're new to Reformed theology or maybe you've never heard it before, because definitely I didn't hear these terms before. I also wanted to give a shout out before we get into lingo terms of Reformed stuff. Our Thanksgiving episode was great. We even had high fives in it.
We did. Yeah.
We had everything.
High fives.
They were.
High fives were.
It was a great moment.
Yeah.
And somehow, I'm going to blame it on Thanksgiving happened. Like, a bunch of apps were not working.
That's true. That did make me feel a little bit better, but not by much, because it was definitely my fault. And I don't know how I managed to delete more stuff, but I did. I totally managed to delete more stuff. And I don't know how it keeps happening, but it does. Like, I'm sitting there looking at my screen, and as I'm looking at my screen, stuff starts disappearing. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, guys, but it's bad. Whatever it is I'm doing, I keep deleting things.
Other thing. But there was a great Thanksgiving thing that we found out that we were so excited that that the first pilgrims were Calvinists.
Yes, they
that
were.
That was the coolest thing. And we found out right before Thanksgiving, and then we recorded the episode. So we had a hootenanny. What is it? Hootenanny?
A hootenanny. I'm from Texas. I know. It's a hootenanny.
Yes, I love that. But
I'm done. I'm signing out now. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Oh yeah, and a shout out to, we have Gina and Tammy on writing for us on the blog. Narrow is the gate. Is that what it's called?
Through the narrow.
Through the narrow. I was going to say narrow is the gate. Through is the narrow.
Yes, they are doing a fantastic job. I'm so thankful for both of them.
I love their new one. I got to read it when I'm still sick, everybody. I'm like having this lingering cough. Please pray for me. It's going to go away. So I had to go to the doctor, and I was while waiting, and I had to wait a while, which was fine because I love the lady that I go see. But I got to read this, and I super enjoyed it. It reminded me of you and I chatting about, like, we did our announcement video, and we were we weren't even going to discuss it, but we were talking about how we take prescription meds for ailments that she and I both have. And I have TMJ. She has a neurological disorder. And I should say everybody has TMJ, actually.
It's different, right? Like
but I have TMJD or whatever. Yeah, I have, like, my jaw joints are give me pain. But it was just freeing just to be able to talk about that. So I was sitting there.
Everybody's just gonna have to deal with, like, a shadow on my face, and no matter how I seem to arrange the light,
It doesn't seem that bad. I look like I'm orange. So
no, you're tan. You're so tan.
I'm tan. Yes.
You're from Arizona. You're tan.
Tan. I do go for walks. I should wear sunscreen.
I mean, it's a weird flex, but you do in fact go for walks because sometimes you call me from them. So I know I can validate that she is walking with me.
Mm-hmm, I will. That's usually I'll either be calling Lauren or or listening to a podcast or listening to music. One of those. So,
what kind of music do you listen to when you're walking?
I like a lot of a lot of City of Light right now. It's like my kick.
Good stuff.
And sometimes I like 90s. And there's my song for Lauren that I love. Miracles Happen. I forget the name of the artist, but it's that song. It's his Diaries. So
yes. I love that movie. I thought you were gonna say Mbop from Hanson.
Oh, I love that one too. Yes. That one. Any 90s.
That was my first concert to ever go to. So
really?
I still love Mbop. Anytime I'm like in a really bad mood, my husband can play that and I'll be like, okay, everything's gonna be okay.
It's a good day.
It is.
And I hear they're Christians and they're still
Are they? I didn't know that. That's interesting. How about
Reformed? I don't know.
I mean, if they are, we need to find out because I mean, obviously they listen to us, so they can just contact our people. And
contact our people are you and me.
And Clementine. We have Clementine. She's useless, but it's okay. So yes, we're going to struggle to focus today, but Becca makes us really awesome outlines.
Yes. Oh yeah, we have outlines. We did it. We have paper. We printed. Yeah. This episode reminds me of like what Chris Roseborough does, where he has prophecy bingo.
Yes, I love that.
Because we said funny things when we used to be Word of Faithers, or formerly Word of Faith, Pentecostal, Charismatic, whatever. I don't know title. But he does the bingo, name it and claim it, speak it into existence, new wineskin, and he actually has bingo, so you can go to his website and like it'll generate one for you, and you can play along while he's playing different random bad heretical sermons, breaking them down, and then finding the if you have
that is such a cool idea. We should do like a whole episode where we are actually playing his video, but playing bingo alongside him. I think we'd probably have to have permission for him. I mean, he obviously watches us, so
play along.
You get a hold of our people, and our people will get a hold of us, and we'll be in touch, Chris.
We can make that happen.
That is,
and we can probably share the screen, and then we can be recording ourselves at the same time. So
technology, right? Super cool. I love technology. Yeah, the bingo thing though is such a fun idea. He said that came from his son though. Like his son came up with some of those ideas, and I'm like, nice. I don't know who your son is, but you need to give him a raise because that's brilliant. That's something.
Yes, high five.
Right?
Yes, high five to Chris Roseburgh's son. I don't know his name. To the Roseboroughs.
Chris Jr. 50% chance that's what it is. I'm just saying. Why do men do that even? You know, like that must cause a lot of issues with mail. Like if the mail
I know, that's my first thing. Yeah. Mail.
Yeah. What Social Security numbers.
What's the song?
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail.
Mail. We totally just quoted Blue's Clues, and it is almost 2020. That was so bad. 20 years ago, if not more.
Bad. It's still on though, at least. You know, it does hurt. It really does. But the important thing is that everybody understands why we only record in the mornings now, because I derail this train all day long. If not, I mean, I'm already not focused even in the morning, but it's worse at night.
People are going to start requesting us doing it only at night.
That's so true. Everybody's
comment below. Let us know.
You guys are boring in the morning. Can you just only do it when you're delirious? I should not be this delirious, but I only got like 4 hours of sleep last night. So on top of that, like by this time, as soon as the sun goes down, for some reason my brain checks out, and it's just like, you're good, right? Like you're okay. You can function without thoughts, focus, attention, memory. Gone.
We got the paper right here.
We have paper. Thanks to Becca. I would be lost. I in fact, before she started writing these, I frequently took us into the wrong direction for like 3 hours, and then she skewed us back into the right direction. So
I don't know how I remember. Somehow we did it.
You did so good though, seriously. Try to like rein me in, and then I would get so mad at myself afterwards. I'd be editing for like 2 days trying to find the important pieces in between my nonsense.
That's like me with my meme. I was like, I could not figure the meme out, that one that I sent you this morning. I was like, I can't figure it out. Finally, I'm like, I'm just going to put a background behind it.
I didn't even post an article today anyway. Sorry.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't post it.
Sorry, everybody, that I failed to post a blog today. It's been a really long today.
Wait, so are you posting it today for them? Are they listening this tomorrow?
Oh, that's right. Well, today you'll have a blog, but yesterday there was not one. So I apologize from the past.
From the past
into the future.
Into the future.
Yep. Okay, let's dive right in, shall we?
Let's do it. So the first word itself, reformed, reformation, like I found some info. A lot of the stuff that I got was from Britannica. Kind of wanted to find a source that wasn't Wikipedia.
I know. I don't understand Wikipedia. Is it like, it's like people writing?
It's open-sourced.
Open-sourced. Okay. So what if people lie?
Things are cited so you can check it. So if there is something you're like, there's a discrepancy of something, you can check it. That's the thing I do like about Wikipedia. I think even now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in school they're starting to allow people to quote Wikipedia because of how much citation there is. Correct citation. So, and they're actually asking for donations because it's open sourced and most of their writers don't get paid. So
yeah, I saw that when I went there. They were asking for money, and I was like, okay, so Wikipedia can do it, and it's fine. But like, if a church does that, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's a problem, right?
I know, but that's what we come from. Like, we come from. I was just watching a thing about, what was it? Paula White saying, first fruits, like you need to give to God, or He's going to, steal from you. I don't know. What is that verse? I forget. I don't know. I don't know how to say.
It's Malachi.
You're stealing from God, so He's going to punish you.
Yeah. Yep. I remember that one. Every single Sunday. I remember that one.
I know it's every Sunday.
It's the only verse that they helped me memorize.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll have at those churches, I don't know if other Reformed people know this, but at churches they'll have like a tithing section. It's a part of the service. And it's like a 5-minute spiel. And then sometimes at least once a month or once every few months, there'll be an actual tithing service.
Yes.
Yeah. True. And there's first fruits service sometimes. Yep. Sometimes that's every month, or sometimes that's the first of the month. And then they require you to give all of your tithe, which is insane.
Right?
Absolutely absurd. You will not find that in the Bible anywhere.
No.
But those are things that, like, there are funny things now that charismatics say that I just like when someone starts like rebuking the weather and all, just like,
let's not do that. I mean, how many times do you have to be embarrassed before you stop doing that? I don't know. Like, what's the limit of like natural disasters that your ministry can withstand? And apparently it's like 100% of them, they can withstand it. It's fine. They're going to be just fine.
Right? Oh, gosh. Oh, it's so bad. But that's maybe another episode. But this one, so Reformed. I found this from Britannica. Reformation, also known as the Protestant Reformation, the religious revolution that took place in Western Church in the 16th century. Its greatest leaders undoubtedly were Martin Luther and John Calvin. Having far-reaching political, economic, and social effects, the Reformation became the basis for founding of Protestantism. It says one of the three major branches of Christianity. I don't know what the other ones are.
I know, that's the first thing I thought.
Like, Catholicism? What's the other one?
Maybe the word of faith stuff.
Yes!
The mass majority of Christianity
mainstream.
Would be mainstream, yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. But that was definitely a word I never heard before, Reformed.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't talk about words like that.
Yeah.
There was
no.
And there's a reason for that. And it's not just because these guys haven't heard it. And granted, I'm certain that there are quite a few of the smaller churches that haven't heard of Reformed people, but that's a small majority. For the most part, by the time you get into a certain age, you've been around long enough to know who John MacArthur is. And the only reason I know that is because I've mentioned him to people from my past, from people who are still in the Word of Faith, and they'll all be like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of him. He used to be on the such and such channel or this radio station." And so it's not that these guys don't know necessarily, but that they are unwilling to really teach anything like that. And who can blame them, because it's clearly a refutation of everything they're teaching. So yeah,
right. And I love the word reformed. She and I have talked about this so much. Like, we love the word reformed. I love the title. I think there's a new movement of people not wanting to be called reformed. So let us know. Let us know if you do like the title. I'm a big believer. Labels save lives.
That's right. I love whenever you say that, Timmy, because it's true. It is. It's true. Labels do save lives. They're very important.
Like if a if your doctor, gives you a prescription and there's no label on there, we would go, that's absolutely absurd.
It's not a good idea.
Absolutely absurd.
No, that's how people die. Yes, labels save lives. It helps us all as believers whenever because it would be really difficult for you to have to sit and explain where you are at in every doctrine, right? Even as Reformed, there are different doctrinal,
which we're going to talk about. There's tiers.
Oh, well, there's tiers too.
There's tiers, and there's different. There's cessationist Reformed. There's how do you say it?
Continuationist.
Continuationist. Thank you. I can say
there's dispensationalism. I mean, there's a lot of, there's premillennial, amillennial, postmillennial. I mean, there's different views, but that kind of stuff is really complicated and actually kind of just annoying to have to explain. So it's helpful to have
to have a big envelope or an umbrella word to say. Yeah.
I don't know why our generation is so against.
Oh, labels. I know. Annoying. And I'm I wish I had heard these words before. Maybe we should talk about them more.
Yes. This whole episode was Becca's idea, and it's really exciting.
Aww. We've been wanting to talk. I was there's all these lingo things that we never heard. Even when even when I heard Justin Peters 2 years ago and finally heard the gospel, I still had never heard these things. And even Puritans, we just heard Justin Peters say, "You never heard about Puritans. You thought they were pilgrims."
Yes, exactly. In a funny hat. Yeah. And he grew up actually in a Southern Baptist church, so that wouldn't even be as bad as. I mean, we were full-fledged Word of Faithers, Pentecostal, holy rolling up in there. So, I mean, if you're not hearing about these things anywhere, then no wonder it's so confusing.
Yeah, seriously, and it's so cool because Lauren was texting me last week about David Brainerd.
Yes,
is it Brainerd? And I was like, no way, he's Reformed? I was like, wait, he's a Puritan? What? No way, because I was studying him before that's why I wanted to be a missionary, was because of him. Yeah. And I thought it was a charismatic thing. So we need to have these labels out there, because the charismatic movement, or let me rephrase that a little bit. That's a Word of Faith movement that's out there. They are trying to take theologically sound stuff.
Yep.
Keep it in there. That's just some business back there. Pay no attention to the big die.
I'm gonna die on the screen. Seriously. But yeah, no, you're so right. That's what makes it so dangerous to try to ignore these things, because whenever you are not specific with your terms, then other people who are looking for the opportunity, they take it. That's something they're going to run with, and they're going to be really excited about that. And they do. They take these people who were Reformed, who were biblically sound, and they act like they're a part of their camp, and it gives credence to their views. It makes them look more legit.
It does. And So it was freeing to hear Lauren tell me the week before about David Brainerd. So I'm so excited. But Puritans, cool. I think this is also from Britannica. Puritanism, a religious reform movement in the late 16th and 17th centuries that sought to purify the Church of England of remnants of the Roman Catholic popery that Puritans claimed had been retained after the religious settlement. Puritans became noted in the 17th century for a spirit of moral and religious earnestness that informed their whole way of life, and they sought through church reform to make their lifestyle the pattern for the whole nation. Their efforts to transform the nation contributed both to civil war in England and to the founding of colonies in America as working models of the Puritan way of life. And I just think that's beautiful. That's basically Thanksgiving.
It is. That is.
That was our Thanksgiving episode.
I love this because it's so funny when we go to these secular sites, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like we want to get the full picture from all the different sides, but
right.
They say here that the Puritans contributed to civil war, but ironically enough, it was the Anglican Church saying that they weren't allowed to preach on predestination.
Yeah.
That caused people to leave and to go to America. Like that's why the Great Migration.
It was illegal, right?
Yeah, they made it illegal. John Bunyan gets put in jail. Of course, while he's in jail, he writes the Pilgrim's Progress, so we're very thankful for that. But I'm sure he didn't have very much fun in jail for 12 years, like no television or soccer fields. So yeah, it was definitely like a more intense situation than what they try to portray. And whenever we were researching this for last week's episode, it was one of the things that really bothered me. It's like the liberal Christians, they kept on portraying the Puritans as like these morons that didn't know what they were doing, and they just sort of happened to be on a boat that just, was haphazardly making its way across the ocean. And that's not what was happening at the time. And so what you actually have is people who just want to preach the full counsel of God's word. They want to be able to, and like we do today, we have countries today now saying you can't preach on this verse, you can't preach on this subject, but you can say anything else you want. That's what was happening then. At the same time, you're being told certain verses in the Bible, we don't want you to preach on. And so they take off, and portions of them stay. Those are the Puritans. The ones that don't stay, those are the Pilgrims. They're making a pilgrimage to a new land. So they're called the Pilgrims. They are separatists. They separate from the Anglican Church. Eventually, though, like after the Civil War, tens of thousands of Puritans make their way to the colonies. So when it says
they were able to flee.
Yeah, they seriously they came over here in droves.
Because it was that law, and people were going to be imprisoned. So because of their belief in predestination, that's insane to me. It like when she told me that, and we did the Thanksgiving episode, it was like Thanksgiving changed for me. Forever. I mean, I just love learning about theology, people, and history, and that changed America for me.
It did, and I really never was very excited about Thanksgiving because it's like one of those days where I'm thankful that we can all get together, we get to eat a cool meal, and I'm excited about it. It's almost one of those holidays where you're just like, I don't really understand. Why are we eating this big meal and getting sick and then having all these leftovers? But whenever you research all of this, it made me realize, like, okay, so we have October 31st, Reformation Day, and then we have Thanksgiving in November, which is just like the day of Puritan reform dudes coming over. Like, okay, I'm gonna celebrate that now way more excitedly. You kidding me now? Like this is 2 months worth of reform stuff. That's what's gonna be happening in this house. So I'm pretty pumped.
I know. We need to have more like reform decorations.
Yes.
That are also fallish. I'm writing that down.
Definitely write it down.
I have it.
We got to get that up in our store for next.
I know next year we're going to try to do a Advent.
Oh, that would be so cool. That's
like
a really
thing.
good idea.
I don't know. Something Advent, either calendar or devotional. Lauren and I are still learning about that, and because we're not super familiar with it, and so, like all of a sudden, a lot of the ladies at my church were talking about it. So let us know. Do you do Advent? Like, can you send us some resources? It's so cool. I only am familiar with Advent because I worked at a Catholic school, and they did a particular like candle that was a particular color, and it was each week, but really, that's if you learn back in history, Martin Luther actually started that.
Right?
And, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, we'll talk more about that in our Christmas episode.
I can't wait to talk about that. That is going to be really cool. I've learned a lot more this year than I've ever learned before.
Yeah.
And I like in-depth researched this whenever I first became a Christian, and I still never learned any of these things.
Yeah, I know. Like you guys are learning with us as we're learning about stuff, or maybe you know more let us know. Tell us. But that leads us into Calvinism.
Woohoo, Calvinism!
Which is funny because I made a meme not too long ago. We should repost it again.
Yes, you got it.
I should do it as, the Fight Club, the bar of soap. I should find like a bar of soap.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Calvinism. Because the quote that the meme that we made was, the first rule about Calvinism is you don't talk about Calvinism.
Yeah.
And it's true. That's what I've experienced at a lot of like the churches and stuff that I'm a part of and stuff. That's been my experience. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny too, because you don't realize it at first. And I think that's where part of like the cage stage idea comes from.
Yes.
Just that you have a bunch of people who don't realize that no one else is going to be excited about what you're excited about whenever you become a Calvinist and you start talking to people about these biblical truths. And that's what, before you even know that there's a word called Calvinist, most of the time we're just aware of like these biblical truths that are so beautiful and exciting. We want to tell people about God's sovereignty and about how
God's sovereignty.
How amazing that is, that like in his sovereignty, he still chose to save us. And that's beautiful. But most people aren't excited about that. So Calvinism from Britannica is Calvinism, the theology advanced by John Calvin, a Protestant reformer in the 16th century, and its development by his followers. The term also refers to doctrines and practices derived from the works of Calvin and his followers that are characteristic of the Reformed churches. Something that I found out that I didn't know that I thought was really fascinating is that Calvin he's younger than Luther. So he's alive during the time of Luther, but he is actually shaped by Martin Luther. Like his theology, like I always thought he was around the same age as Luther and Zwingli, but he's actually younger than them. So he's kind of like, even though his name is like the main name, he came not after them, but like, at least a couple of decades afterwards. So they're still alive when he's alive and whenever he's preaching. But I didn't know that he had like all of this knowledge already written down for him. So he was, like, whereas Zwingli and Luther, they had Tyndale and other men like that. Luther, he's written plenty of books. Zwingli has written plenty of things. So I thought that was kind of cool. Calvin actually, not necessarily on his own for these things. Like he's got believers that came before him, which is just really exciting, I think.
Yes. I know. So it's reformers, then Puritans, and then Pilgrims. And I love that. I just love that.
I do too. I love it. So exciting. And then Spurgeon.
And then Spurgeon, yes. The Prince of Preachers. Which, it's insane. I see people that are not, they're Word of Faithers, and they quote him, and it makes me mad face. You know what I mean? Just like, like, why are you quoting him? Do you not know he's a Calvinist? I don't think you mentioned him because I didn't add him. So I'm so glad you did, because Charles Spurgeon, he's so great. Like,
yes.
And when you understand a lot of these other terms and things that we'll be going over, like, you'll hear us talk about the next few things, but Charles Spurgeon is an awesome preacher and someone to read from.
Yeah.
And the next thing, 5 solas, you'll hear that sometimes. You'll hear people talk about 5 solas, and let's see, I found a little thing of it. The 5 solas are 5 Latin phrases or slogans that emerged during the Reformation to summarize the Reformers' theological convictions about the essentials of Christianity. So these came out of the Reformation during that time. The 5 solas.
Yes. So obviously we totally love to quote Sola Deo Gloria.
Yeah, yes we do.
But like, I don't know, last year around this time, I actually went through the 5 solas with Kaylee in her lessons so that she understood all 5 of them from a scriptural perspective. And I found
I love that.
Yeah, the packet that I found, it was awesome. I mean, it just went through all of the Reformation. And we did that and then led up to we went backwards. So we started with the Puritans, and then we went backwards into the Reformers, and then we went backwards into the pre-Reformers. And it was really fun to teach her some of the, the biblical truth and the church history that we have. It was really exciting.
I love that. I want that. Can we link that?
If I can find it, I'll totally link it. But if not, sorry guys.
I know, sorry guys. You'll just have to study on your own.
Haha.
So the 5 solas, can you think of them all? Can you, without looking at the paper?
Okay, so I'm not going to look at the paper. I'm looking
Okay.
up. I have my hand over the spot. So you have sola scriptura, scripture alone. Sola fide, faith alone. Sola Christus, Christ alone. Sola gratia, and then sola deo gloria. So sola gratia is grace alone. Right? And then sola deo gloria is for the glory of God alone. Did I get them?
Yeah, you did. I love that. Sola scriptura, scripture alone, the Bible alone is our highest authority. Sola fide or fide? Fide. Faith alone, we are saved through faith alone in Jesus Christ. Sola gratia, grace alone, we are saved by grace of God alone. Solus Christus, Christ alone. Jesus Christ alone is our Lord, Savior, and King. And sola de gloria, to the glory of God alone. We live for the glory of God alone. I love these. I never heard this, and now I want a full tattoo of my back.
Yes, on your whole back, the whole thing. Shave that bad boy, wax it, and then tattoo this to it. This is why we don't do shows at night. I'm sorry. I apologize. I am so sorry that I just said that.
I do want like a tattoo artist to do this and put it on my tattoo wall that I will never put on my body.
Yes.
But tattoos I would love to have.
Yes.
Because that changed my mind too much. I get so nervous when I post a meme. Yes. I can't post, I can't tattoo.
Seriously, no, I had a tattoo before whenever I was 18, and I wish I hadn't. I so wish that I hadn't gotten that tattoo. And I just know that if I got one now in 10 years, I'd be saying, why did I get that?
Well, if you got the solas, you would just be like, 10 years, I just need to get it touched up again. I mean,
that's so true. I would not regret that at all.
Yeah, I know. These are cool. If I got something, these are really cool.
Yeah. And then it leads. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I was
leading into the next one.
Oh, I was just going to say that I love that this is like a perfect summation of actual Christian biblical doctrine. And so if you look at the 5 solas, and a lot of people will say, I've heard this so many times, like, well, the 5 solas, they're not in the Bible.
I know, yeah.
Have you ever Bibled, bro? Because this is pure biblical stuff. But my favorite thing, like whenever I heard Cy Ten Bruton-K's, he's doing a debate, and he's got Jeff Durbin in there, and there's another pastor dude in there, and he's asking the atheist, do you have faith? And the atheist is like, no, I don't have faith. I have confidence. And Cy is like, oh, you have confidence. And the guy, the atheist is all like, yeah, I have confidence in this. And he's like, confidence, fide, with faith.
Oh, boom! That is amazing. I would have never, now that I know what sola fide is.
Yeah,
now I know. That's so funny.
I loved that. I thought that was so much fun.
When did that happen?
Gosh, I think it was a year or so ago.
Oh my gosh, is this? Can we link this?
Yes,
I
will totally link this.
Yay.
They even made a meme out of it on, like, with the angry cat, and the lady that's all angry and she's pointing. It's really funny. So, yeah.
Yes, I have to link that in there.
Can totally focus. I can do this.
I love this. Okay, so that leads into, some people try to say that is the doctrines of grace. I actually kind of thought that. I was kind of confused when I first got redeemed. I would hear 5 solas, and then I would think it's also the same as doctrines of grace. But
right.
But doctrines of grace, there's some great info from gotquestions.org is a great source to use. And I actually did a 5-day study from Bible Study app of doctrines of grace. It's 5 days. It goes over a lot of the scriptures over each one. So it's TULIP, the doctrines of grace. TULIP is an acronym of T for total depravity, which I love because of the Calvin meme, the Santa Calvin.
I love that. The Santa Calvin.
Everyone's on the naughty list. I'm like, yes.
Everybody. Yes.
Total depravity.
So true. Or have you seen the dog where the owner is saying to the dog, and the dog is like a John Calvin dog, and he's all like, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? And the dog stops and is like, no one is good.
We're
all wretched.
Yes, we are all wretched. I love that because we did not hear that at all before. You were always someone special. God loves you. There's something special in you.
You're worth dying for.
You're worth dying for. God broke the law. Like all of that heretical stuff. People know we are totally depraved.
Mm-hmm.
Then U for unconditional election. L for limited atonement. 4 is irresistible grace, and the 5th one is perseverance of the saints. And I've heard that there are 3 or 4 point Calvinists out there, which I don't know how you can be a 3 or 4 point Calvinist.
Yeah, like maybe they just haven't fully bought into all of it yet. They just got a couple of them down. But actually, I was just listening to some like vintage scroll where he goes through each one of these, and it's really funny because he's got a preference for the letters, and so he kind of changes the tulip into something that's actually not a word, but he's changing these words into our modern day vernacular so that it's not confusing. So I can link to that below as well.
I love that.
Super helpful.
Oh, so this reminds me, Reformed roasters have, if you are a 3 point Calvinist, there's a lighter roast of coffee for you. Or you can just get the decaffeinated one.
Yes, in case you want to be a complete baby, get the decaffeinated one. No caffeine in that one.
I wonder if they have a Christmas version.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm checking live for you guys right now, but it'll be live by the time this is happening. Oh, they have the limited atonement. I don't see anything for Christmas though.
They weren't on it. I wonder if they have some coal. Ground coal.
That would be great.
They need to hire me or hire us. Come on.
Just you.
Come on our show.
Let's be honest. One of us is organized and funny, and then the other one is me.
Yeah, we should have them on the show, though.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love that idea. We should write that down. Write that down.
I'm writing it down.
Forget. Okay. See how organized? I've already forgotten what we're supposed to be writing down.
Reformed roosters.
Sorry. That's why I needed Becca. The camera won't stop focusing on me. It's so awkward. Like the camera's it's focusing.
Oh yeah, mine does that sometimes. If I like look down and look up, it like refocuses. Cameras just aren't there yet. No, they're getting better every year. They get better.
Yeah, I mean, I have that drone. I could totally use that, but I don't know how.
It's just a drone in front of you. That battery's gonna die real quick.
Oh my goodness, they do die really fast, especially if you're like doing it in the speed racer mode. So we've got a DJI Spark, and if you turn it into like I don't remember, it's got a fancy name for how fast it'll go, like 26 miles an hour, and it can do all these cool loop-de-loops and stuff, but only for like 2 minutes, and then it dies.
And then that's it. I know, I'm kind of nervous about like walking down the street and drones just dropping like flies. And I'm just walking, minding my own business.
That's great. That would totally happen to me. Like I'm just walking.
I know, that would happen to me. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. This is so great.
I don't want it to happen to me.
I don't either.
Hopefully there's like some fail switch that it doesn't, I don't know.
Ours has one. It has obstacle avoidance. So it
have Becca avoidance.
Does not have Becca avoidance. That'll be the one point where it malfunctions, like just all of a sudden malfunctions, hit somebody in the head and we get sued. That'd be terrible. Those blades are no joke. Like
I know.
I didn't take it seriously at first, and I was like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna stick my hand underneath this, and because you can do this and it'll land on your hand. It's got like hands that use. And my husband knows me well enough to know that that's not a good idea. Just let somebody else do those things. Why do I have to be the one to get my finger cut off? I've cut a finger off before.
Really?
The top of it, yeah. So like,
which one? Which finger?
It was my thumb.
Do your left one?
It's actually this one. So I don't know this
right
one.
This one.
You can barely tell. Like it's just like a little uneven on this side compared to like my other thumb. Like you can't tell.
Did it hurt? There's a
Not
lot
at first. At first it was fine, but after like 5 or 10 minutes, it was on fire, and I was like, I'm dying. I'm dying.
That is the worst. I remember someone saying in like school, they were like, paper cuts are the worst, and I'm like,
nope.
You're like, I actually know that's not true.
It's really not. It's not true. No, I was making an apple pie, and I was using that mandolin, where you and it's got the little hook thingy that you hook onto the apple, and then you use the little guard protector thingy. It even has a glove. And I was like, it's not that sharp. There's no reason to use any of those things. I'll just do this with my hand. And I'm slicing, boom, finger gone. What? Oh no.
Did it fully come off?
Like just the chunk of the finger came off. Like, sorry.
So you had to go in and get that sewn back on.
No, I didn't, because I don't go to the doctor. So even though my husband was like, you need to go to the doctor, and I was like, you're a doctor, fix me. So he did the best that he could, and after like 3 weeks, it stopped bleeding and stopped hurting. So
you poor thing. When did this happen?
It happened several years ago. It was like maybe 2016. It was before the bacon grease incident. You know, like the bacon grease incident was where he drew the line, and he was like, "You're going to the doctor. There's something wrong."
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
That was that was after this. This was pre bacon grease. But so like once I was getting this big pan of bacon grease out of the stove, and I cooked the bacon in the stove because it pulls the grease out and it makes it's supposed to make it healthier, but I just reused the grease. It's not really healthier. But I had a glove in one of my hands. I think I had a glove in this one. So I'm holding the pan with this hand, and my eye itches. And so I go to itch the eye. Now I have a free hand that's got no burning hot boiling bacon grease. And instead of using the free hand, I use the hand with the pan to wipe my eye, which pours the grease all over my other arm. And so I got, 2-degree burns, which was really, really painful. And so, but not as painful as having to go to the doctor, because my husband at that point was like, that's it. There's something wrong. Like,
that's it.
Normal people don't pour bacon grease on themselves on accident. Like you should be able to like maneuver something at the same time as scratching your eye. And so, that's when we figured out that there were some neurological issues going on. But the finger thing happened before that, and I was still very adamant that there was no way, unless I was dying, that I was going to go to the doctor. So no, I didn't sew it back on, but I also had to like start over with the pie. So that was also kind of a bummer.
Yeah, you can't have fingers in your pie.
There was literally finger and like blood, and my husband was like trying not to vomit as he's wrapping it up.
Aww, I know, that's hard.
Yeah, apple pies are hard. Thank you for understanding. Like, who makes apple pies from scratch? That's dumb. That's the last time
I don't. I just make fudge. Fudge is really easy to make, and there's no
cutting.
There's no knife.
Seriously. After the bacon grease thing, my husband bought me a bunch of like food that you can just cook in the microwave. And for a little while there, he was just like, "Don't worry about the stove, honey. If there's something you need to make in the stove, I'll take care of it." And I was like, "I'm not an invalid." And he would just he'd look down at my arm all wrapped up, and like, it was gross. It was, it's still there. Like the scar is still there. But
what did you do with the chunk?
The chunk of my finger? Oh, my husband took care of that.
Did it kind of grow back a little bit?
A little bit, yeah, it did, yeah. Like, well, I mean, it's scarred over quite a bit, and so I think some of the scar tissue is what we see, but I don't have any feeling in that part of the thumb now.
Part.
Yeah, well, actually, I've burned my fingers so many times that for the most part, the tops of all of my fingers, I can touch things in the stove without it hurting. So, but the thumb in particular, like I could probably take some heat with that sucker and be okay.
I'd be okay.
That's
not
the
rest of us.
Do you see why we don't do this at night? I'm sorry.
That was a great little squirrel, though. I like that. So the next one that you came up with, that I have kind of heard of this. The Young, Reformed, and Restless movement.
Yeah, but like I didn't know about it as much whenever I mentioned it. I was like, hey, while we're talking about reform, let's figure out what the difference is between these young reform. Because I just assumed that that's what we were.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Apparently not.
I know. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the research that I was looking into, this term was coined. It was coined by John Piper, Mark Driscoll, and some others, and it was like New Calvinism. Yeah. But it was very like it seems like what the charismatics or the Word of Faith have done to be kind of more inclusive, and it seemed really muddy to me in terms of like about the gifts, and I was like, oh, I can't say that I identify with this. I can't be a part of that. So Lauren came up with a new term for us. Drum roll! Here's the new term for us.
I forgot. You'll have to tell them. I'm sorry.
It's right on there. It's on the paper. Yeah, you did.
Look at you go. Like it's on the paper.
It's on the paper. It's official, people.
Modern Puritans.
Yes.
Modern Puritans.
Yes.
MPs. For sure.
I love it.
I'm going to make us a shirt. We're Modern Puritans. Yes. Because the issues that I had as I was looking into this, and I think some of this has to do with like who it is that you've listened to bring you into Reformed understanding. So I think if you found like Piper, if Piper was your introduction into this, and he's not a cessationist, he's actually a cautious continuationist. Like that makes a lot of sense to me, that like somebody who's coming in that perspective, it would take a little bit longer for them to maybe understand why cessationist is such a important Reformed doctrine.
Right.
But, if you're like me or like you, we're both brought in by solid cessationists, and so I think depending on where you came in at, like there's like a soft introduction to Calvinism, and then there is the Paul Washer / Justin Peters introduction to
yes. That's what I came into. That last one, because but a lot of the pastors, maybe it's just an Arizona thing, but a lot of the pastors that I'm around seem to be very being led by that particular movement of John Piper, and I think Mark Driscoll's out here too, which sucks. Did you guys hear that? He's in Phoenix now. He's like starting a new church. I was like so bummed, because there's Hillsong, and I forget there was some other church too. Like, but Costi Hinn moved here.
Yes.
So we got Costi.
Post tenebrous lux, out of darkness light.
Yes.
That's Costi Hand. Yeah, Costi Hands.
Costi Hands.
Costi Hinn. Post tenebrous lux.
We can talk.
I know words.
I know words.
Words. I'm sorry. I don't know words.
So yeah, you might hear this term, and so we felt like we couldn't identify with that particular movement, but we do think there are a lot of millennials leaving mainstream church, mainstream Word of Faith that's out there, the typical Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, Hillsong, Bethel type churches, and they want the truth. I think that's beautiful. I think that's a movement, and I'm part of Modern Puritans. I like that.
Yes,
10
absolutely.
times better.
Well, we see this in every generation, actually. I mean, like, and I think the reason why it was so surprising in this generation is simply because the prosperity gospel is so big. So I think like any sort of, and not only that, but there is this pragmatism that is pushed by Rick Warren, where the desire is to get a hold of the young people. And I think, unfortunately, that has seeped into some of the Reformed thinking, where they want the young people, they want the millennials, they want the Z-gens. It makes them feel cool, like, oh, well, you know, we've got 200,000 new converts to Calvinism that are coming from the millennials. Well, maybe take a step back and think about the responsibility that you just took on, because, like, have you ever babysat more than one kid at one time?
I know. Oh my gosh.
Like what happened here. You guys have this massive majority of kids who are coming into your movement who have no theological grounding whatsoever. And they may be baby Christians, or they may just not even be, they may not be converts at all, but they may be just be trying to understand truth. And they've come to you, and you are pushing them into the limelight. You are applauding them. You're giving them all of this attention. And it's a problem, because millennials, we like that attention. Like, that's the reason why we invented selfies. And so it causes all of these issues for you to take this massive group of kids and give them that limelight. It's not a good idea to do that. And I think that causes a lot of issues. But we see this in every generation. John MacArthur even talks about this, that like when he came to the Reformed faith, he thought all Calvinists were just like really stuffy, grouchy old men in suits, you know, like, and that probably was like, but that's what we love about Calvinism.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
You mean there are pastors that respect the pulpit enough to get up there in a suit? That's amazing. Like, I mean, most of the pastors that I've seen in person were wearing sweatpants.
I know.
So,
yeah.
like,
I don't know what they're wearing. Yeah. Have you seen what Carl Lentz wears?
No, he's in New York, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I he's not much older than we are. Like he's in his early 40s or something, or late 30s, and
wow.
But he looks older. But I remember attending Hillsong once in New York with my husband many years ago. We were going with a friend of his, and we went to we went to a few of the services. They were on different campuses, and we noticed that the boys. Like all the, you see a lot of the singers, or you can tell who the Hillsong people are. Well, the boys looked prettier than the girls. And I just remember sitting back and I was just like, that's so weird. And they had all the cool hairstyles.
Yeah.
It was 2011 and it's hairstyles we're not seeing till now kind of a thing. Like the very trendy haircuts. But it was so weird to see them constantly looking in the mirror, constantly, and women too. Like, I'm not saying those things are bad.
What you're seeing in these kind of churches is actually the self-glorification, like the glorification of man. And that happens with young people. Like there's a reason why we need to
young people
go through. Yeah, we need to go through the trials of life because it humbles you. And so it's not a problem for lay people to have cool haircuts. It's not even a problem for like the pastor to have a nice, decent haircut. But the problem comes whenever the pastor is up there with the cool haircut for the purpose of getting the glory.
Yeah, you're drawing attention to self.
Yes,
that's when it's crossed the line. And I think we all got to wear big boy pants and big girl pants, and we all know when we're crossing that line. Like I wear stuff, and I ask my husband, "Is this okay? Is this too tight? Is this okay?" And because there's things up there that are distracting, even just on a audience level, like there are just things that are distracting.
Absolutely.
You're taking away from the beautiful moment of hearing from the Word of God.
That's so important.
And some people are coming there and that's all they get to hear for their week. And all they can focus on is this cool new do and some shoes. And I think, if I recall, I'm glad you kind of made that point, because a lot of the articles that I was seeing was kind of talking about that young. They really cater to the young. And and that's you know what? Yeah, because we saw that in Hillsong Bethel, like the churches that we were a part of. That's the same thing.
Yeah,
that is the same thing, and I kind of don't like that movement. Although I do like John Piper. I like some John Piper quotes, but I do disagree with him on some major key things.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues, but I think that explains the difference. Why when we looked into this, we were like, no, that doesn't actually sound like me. I think because we kept through that wasn't the door that we entered into Reformed theology. But the idea that we do see these young guys. You see Francis Chan, you see David Platt, these younger guys. I don't remember the name of the dude who wrote that book about like purity or something when we were
Joshua Harris, the faith. I read that book even when I was a charismatic or word of faither. Like I read that.
Like we had the straight edge even in the word of faith. Like they still have
I have to think about it. Like
word of faith. What was it called? Word of faith. That's right. I know word. But so I think that those movements they create these stars, these like young people, and they grab these young people and they lift them up and they're like, look, we've got young cool people. Like, don't do that, okay? Because the reason we're leaving these churches as young people is because of that. Because we don't want that. We want truth. We want biblical truth, even if it's the most boring presentation you can.
Yes.
I want that. I don't care if it's entertaining. I don't care if the music is like full of loud noise. And in fact, I don't prefer that.
Right.
What I want whenever I come is God glorifying truth. That's why we're fleeing from these churches. And if you replicate what we're fleeing from in these churches, what you get is people starting their own churches because they want away from that.
It's true. And that's something you don't want to attract that kind. And that's what people are leaving from. And that's not what they're coming to your church for. So you're absolutely, you're really gonna,
it's going to
hurt the people. good for both people.
You take these younger believers, these immature believers, and you prop them up like that, and what you get is immaturity, but getting more immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens whenever you prop up men of maturity, men that have been in the Word for longer than I've been alive, they will teach me and everyone else around me maturity, so that whenever I get to their age, I can teach the same level of maturity. But what happens whenever you take Francis Chan's and you lift them up and you have them teach, and they are not mature in the faith, they do what he's doing now, which is like propping up ecumenical Roman Catholics, Word of Faithers, complete wolves in sheep's clothing. And he's creating immaturity in other people. So instead of lifting people up that are mature and maybe don't look as cool as, Carl, whatever his name is from New York.
Yeah.
They may not look that cool, but who cares? I mean, who really honestly cares in the Reformed faith about looking cool? Like,
right.
I don't care what you look like. I want to learn truth. I want to grow in the grace and knowledge of Christ. So this is like super frustrating for me whenever, and I don't listen to David Platt, and I've never listened to Francis Chan, because like, I mean, it's almost like an age range where I'm looking for like, okay, you really don't have any gray hair yet.
I know. Yeah, that's me too. You know, when I was taking a math class a year ago and I was sitting there, and it was like coming on, September 11th. And I remember where I was September 11th in 2001.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting in class last year, and I realized that the kids were born that year.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I cannot relate to you. Like, I just can't. Like, and I tried, and they're really smart, and they're, but most of them were on their phones. Unfortunately, that's what I would be doing if I were 19, 20, I guess, too.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them, but I had a really hard time identifying with them. And then I had a hard time if they had advice for me. I just had a really hard time, because I'm like, you do not have experience.
Right.
I thrive on, especially at church or at school, I would always try to be around either people at least my age or older, because I knew that I could get really good experience. And I actually sought out people that were older because I wanted that experience for my field, for whatever, for at church. I want that. That's going to help me take that pride out.
Yes.
I don't want pride filled. Anything.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. And I have so many young believers that, okay, and I'm not going to mention their names because it'll embarrass them, but there are younger believers, 10 years younger than me, that I know, sisters in Christ. And I honestly feel like I'm not worthy to like tie their
absolutely
tennis shoes, because of the fact that they are so mature in the faith. I'm not talking about those people. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the millennials and Z-Gens out there, that they're the ones that actually think that they know everything, and they do want to give you advice, but it's usually like really bad advice.
It is. Yeah. That reminds me
about those guys.
Yes. And I have a great friend from church who is younger than me. She's going to be on the podcast. I'm so excited.
Yay.
I'm so excited. She's coming on in January, and she has been so great at filling me with wisdom. And I'm just sitting there shocked. You know what I mean? Because she's been in the faith longer.
Right.
I was a false convert for most of my life. So I'm getting truth, and it's been so great, and I can't wait to have her on, because
I'm so excited.
Yes.
So excited. Yeah. So I just wanted to make that clear. Like,
yes, I agree.
I do know some Z-Gens that are like way beyond me in maturity. So
the next part is the tears. So we heard that a lot. I heard that a lot at church. I was still, even till recently, I kind of knew what they were talking. If you hear someone say first tier issue or second tier issue or third tier issue, I would be like, where can I find these?
Right. Yeah. What is so a lot of Reformed language?
Yeah. What Reformed people, you'd say this a lot. You will hear this. It's funny. So
it's true. I heard it as primary and secondary or tertiary. So there's even different ways
of saying each one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can say it. I think they call it, the guy who came up with it was Al Mohler. It's a theological triage that they refer to. Our podcasters the Aquila and Priscilla Hour, Emily and Zach did an episode about primary and secondary that was really good. So I totally would love for people to check that out, and if we could link that in there. They just did it, and I was like, they beat us.
I'm
but
so
it's so
thankful.
good who they had on there. It was just awesome to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a great job explaining it too. Like, I'll link to that below, guys, if you want to check that out. That was really helpful. Super duper helpful.
It was super helpful. So we just have quick little things. Primary issues are gospel related, doctrines that are fundamental and essential to the Christian faith, a denial of which represents the eventual denial of Christianity itself. And that's where you'll see it, like Bill Johnson from Bethel with the kenotic Christ, meaning that they say that Jesus laid down his divinity, deity, and so that he was fully man walking, not fully God as well. So it's really weird. So they're basically denying everything. And then there's no sola scriptura at all with them. Like, you just keep going down the line. It further says, you must believe in these in order to be considered Christian, like Trinity, the salvation by faith alone and grace alone. Jesus is God. Jesus died for our sins. Physical resurrection of the dead, and Bible is inspired word of God. Those are first tier things. And if we can't agree on these, we're not a brother and sister in Christ.
Right.
So
that's a big deal. Those are things that do cause disunity. They need to cause disunity. That doesn't mean that we treat one another as like enemies or that we are angry.
No.
We're not full of hatred towards people.
Yeah, they're still an image bearer of God.
Yes. That's so perfect.
Yeah, they're an image bearer, but they're not necessarily a Christian. So really, they just need to hear the gospel.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So we need to share the truth with them. And something that's really important that I want to get in there really quickly for our Reformed friends out there. The grace that you have been given is that God has shared this truth with you, that you understand this truth. That doesn't make you smarter than them. It just actually makes God very gracious. So whenever you're dealing with people who don't understand this, there's a reason why people think that Calvinists are jerks. And it's because on Twitter, some of you really are. So maybe take a deep breath, remember the grace that you've been given. And whenever you're dealing with people who are wrong or people who you think might be wrong, just recall that there is a lot of things that God has had to teach you that,
it's true. Yeah. Because I was 30 when I heard the gospel. Yeah. So I try to think of that when I talk to people, like, ultimately it's God that saves and elects. Yeah. It's not us.
And you can speak truth with love. Like, that is a thing. It's a thing that can happen.
You heard that here from Calvinists on Tulips and Honey.
Do it. Just do it.
Or else. I love that. Secondary. That's towards the local church, which are doctrines that are essential to church life and necessary for ordering of the local church, but which in themselves do not define the gospel. One may not be in agreement with others on this particular level or whatever, but can still be in fellowship with one another. So that's like infant baptism versus believer's baptism, egalitarian versus complementarianism. Those are terms too that I forgot that I should put on here, but egalitarianism is we are equal, like men and women are equal in everything. But complementarian is we complement each other.
Right. Yes.
And we are not equal in terms of things we can do. There are very different men and women roles, which Lauren and I agree that we are complementary. I can't, it's such a weird word. My spell checker was like, fail everything.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Spell checker is like hardcore against Calvinism. I don't know what's up with that. But
spell checks against Calvinism. They're discriminatory.
They are. We should sue.
We should. We so should. The next one, cessationist versus I always want to say this weird, continuationist regarding the signs, gifts, and eternal security of the believer is also secondary types of issues. But third ones are non-essential, and these are kind of fun to me. These are not main things for us to disagree about. And I mean, even at church, like even if you go to church, these aren't things that are major. But these are doctrines that which may be the ground for fruitful theological discussion and debate, but do not threaten the fellowship of a local congregation or denomination.
Nope, you said dominion. That's it. You're a dominionist. Dominionist. Get her.
Dang it. I was like on a roll.
No, look at you
I was like going, and then I said dominionism, which
we should butter on you. You're on a roll.
On a roll. I like that. All right, I love these third tier non-essential things are like Bible translations, use of alcohol, view of end times, style of music, interpretation of difficult text, order of service, style of preaching, dress, service times, tattoos, and my favorite, beards.
What? Why? These are the actual things. Like I'm convinced that somewhere along the lines, people got first tier confused with third tier.
I know.
And now Twitter is convinced that they have to create this unity on third tier issues.
I know.
So yeah, it's weird that that's gotten confused. I don't know who did that, but let's find a way to blame Mark Driscoll.
Mark Driscoll, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And that's so fun because he has a son. Does he have a son Luther and a son Calvin?
Yes.
How do you explain that now?
and then he went ahead and now he bashes Calvin, and I'm like, well, your son must be really upset. Like,
I know.
It's so sad. Anyway.
What a waste of a name then.
I know. That's such a good idea too. Like if I had a bunch of boys. That's
Luther,
what I would do.
Calvin. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Let us know. Does anybody have a son named Calvin? That's so cool. And you name them after John Calvin.
Yes, it only counts if you did it on purpose.
Yes.
But I don't get any say in the naming of children. So if I ever had boys, my husband he bless his sweet little heart. There's some battles I just don't want to fight, and that's one of them because he is so serious about naming children. Like, there's only a few things that he's passionate about. So whenever he's passionate about something, I let him have it. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize. I'm sorry. You do your thing, and the 99% of everything else that you don't care about, I'll take over. And so, yeah, Kaylee's name, Kaylee Shea, that was serious. Like he mulled over these. Blood, sweat, and tears over the naming of our child. So if God ever, like Sarah or Elizabeth's me, and I get somehow a blessing in my own name.
You said something earlier that was hilarious. You're like, dude, have you ever Bibled? Or have you ever Bibled, bro? And now you're saying another one. So funny. I love this.
This is me at night. This is when my husband is home because he works night shifts. So whenever he is home, he's awake at this time. And I think this is why he uses night shifts because morning Lauren is like super serious. And I'm like, this is important information that we have to get out. And but like afternoon, evening me is like, party time.
Party time.
Everything is a joke. Everything. Outlines are funny. Okay. That's never happened in the history of ever, but tonight they're funny. I'm sorry.
Other funny or things you might hear, open but cautious.
Oh yeah. I don't like that.
Cautious.
I don't like that. That sounds like a bad idea. Like, does you think about like if you're in a boat and they're talking about how like there's a hurricane coming. Do you want to go through the hurricane or do you want to go around it? And the captain's all like, I don't know. I'm open but cautious about going through the hurricane. Like, no, you avoid the storm, guys.
You avoid it.
What are you thinking? Your ship's gonna sink. This is how ships sink. Okay. I'm an expert marinator. I don't know.
Marinator. Do you want to explain what that is to our humble bees?
Yeah, marinade is something that you dip the sticks in.
But open but cautious.
I'm so sorry.
You could explain marinade too.
I hate marinade, so I think I'll stick with explaining open but cautious. Open but cautious means that you are open to the idea that the gifts are still, look at the apostolic gifts. So you're talking man being able to heal. You're talking about laying hands on people. You're talking about the sign gifts like speaking tongues. Mm-hmm. You're open, but you're cautious, and as in you're going to double check to make sure that these things are actually happening. and that they haven't just been making things up. But I think that's really a fascinating thing, because if you're not there, it's just a couple of, like, I don't know, Bill Johnsons.
Yeah, like that's how, like, and it comes down to, like, you and I came out of Word of Faith, and so we're not open but cautious type people. So
biblically speaking, we know that through Scripture, the sign gifts existed with the apostles for a reason. And this happens throughout Scripture, the entire Bible. If you look at the full counsel of God's Word, whenever there is biblical books that need to be written, the person who's doing the writing usually has some signs to show that he has the authority of the Holy Spirit. We see that with Elijah. We see it with Daniel. We see it with Moses. We see it with the apostles who are writing Scripture. They're writing the gospel. Peter says it. Paul says it. These are scriptural truths, that they had these gifts to give authority to what they are doing and saying. And some of the gifts, actually, like the tongues, were actually a sign of judgment upon the Jews. Anyways, that's my spiel about that. That's why
I love that. That open cautious. Yeah, if you're wondering, I thought it's a phrase you hear. So it was a phrase I didn't know what that meant when I first got redeemed. So I was just like, what is this open but cautious type stuff? And then the last one I put is my favorite. It's the cage stage. And you'll hear that. You'll hear that a lot. And everybody's cage stage is different. I've heard on average it's usually like a year, but if you're wondering what cage stage is, it is you come into the Reformed theology understanding true biblical gospel redeemed person now, and you're in your cage stage. So everything you're just I like to use this analogy in the movie Twilight, or the book, and she's like, you know, the new vampires, they're so useless because they're so amped up for like their body or whatever is so amped up. Sorry, that's probably like the worst analogy.
No, I think that's a great analogy. I think really whenever you look at what's happening, you're in a cage stage because you're ready to fight to the death, right? Like it's
for third tier non-essential.
Yes,
beards.
Seriously. I think personally that cage stage should not last a year. And if it is lasting a year, you need better disciplinary precautions at your church. Your new Reformed people coming in, they should cage stage for maybe a month before you set them straight. Like what is happening where you are not rebuking these kids because they need to be rebuked? You're leaving them alone and they're bothering us all on Twitter. So stop doing that, okay? They're getting on our nerves. We are tired of having to hear them on Twitter. So get a hold of your cage stagers, guys. What are you? Who have you ever even babysat? Like, have you just never babysat? I mean,
that's true. It's like having, you know, a baby or a child on social media. So definitely, like, you know. But I think too, like, even into the year, you're just like you're ready to attack. Not even only on social media, but like in a real conversation. In real life. Yes. Yeah, and I think that's hard. Now there's fun questions.
Yes.
We got some listener questions. We did. I'm so excited. I love it when you guys send us questions.
Yes. And you don't have to wait for me to ask either. Like if you have questions, you can send them to us. But I do try to ask on social media. So if you're following us on social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. There's the blog. There's the 5solas.online. That's our website.
I promise I will learn to link with the Instagram.
You're doing a great job. Like, social media is weird. But so let's start with our first question. This is from Jeremy on Facebook. And Jeremy on Facebook asks, were you always believers in Reformed theology? And if not, what was the hardest concept for you to agree with or understand? I love this question.
I do too. That's a good question. You want to go first?
Yes. But first, everybody say hi to our producer. Hi, Mr. Producer. Our producer is here to tell us that we've been recording too late and it's time for snuggles. So,
it's snuggles time.
Anyways, okay. No, actually, Jeremy, neither one of us were Reformed theology. But
you know what it was.
When you became a believer, like, did you immediately learn about Reformed theology, or was it a process?
Oh, it was definitely a process for me.
So what was the hardest one for you to get, like, when you were learning about all of that?
Well, then I think learning about predestination and limited atonement was definitely, but once I did, when I first heard about it and then I did the study, I was like, oh yeah, it's in the Bible. Like this, I don't have any part of my faith. So God is fully sovereign. Like he does everything. So I can't make anything happen and I can't make someone saved. How about you?
So,
what was that process like?
I definitely was not Reformed. I didn't understand. I didn't know that Reformed theology existed. I got saved after hearing a Paul Washer sermon, and so I still didn't know that this was separate. So actually, at the time in my cage stage, not realizing it was even that, I thought that there were two types of Christianity. There was the false type, and then there was the true type, which I learned later on was actually called Reformed theology. But I just assumed that there were only two types of believers or two types of Christians, that there was the Reformed Christian that was a genuine Christian, and then there was everybody else that was a false convert. And it took me a long time to understand that that's not how this works.
That's not how this Like, what was the hardest part?
So the hardest concept for me to understand whenever I got saved was actually the doctrine of heaven. So instantaneously I understood hell. As soon as I was saved, I could see in light of God's righteousness, my own wretchedness. And so hell made perfect sense after that. Not something I'd ever considered beforehand, but what I didn't understand was why anybody would get to heaven. And that took me, it took me until like this previous year to understand that it is for his glory that we are saved. And I had heard that and I had internalized it like, okay, that's the answer. But it just I didn't understand, like, how could a wretch glorify God? And it took me a long time to understand why any of us would be saved. Like one person is, in my mind at the time, like one person was one too many, that like none of us deserve it. So why should any of us get it? It's like
that whole total depravity, like
it's like
really,
it's like winning the lottery but having never bought a ticket. So I didn't understand why that would be the case.
The whole election.
Okay, next question then. Super awesome.
Yes, from Emma at
Yay!
My Redemption for His Glory. She spelled favorite. She said, "What is your favorite?" And she spelled it. I loved it. She spelled it a little different because she's our sweet Canadian girl.
Canadian.
She's Canadian, so it's super cute.
Pretty. Yeah,
she spells it with a U. If you're wondering, what is your favorite of the 5 solas and of the tulip? So I'm curious to hear this from you. Which one of the 5 solas is your favorite?
Oh, well,
and why?
I think everybody already knows.
Yeah,
our favorite, Sola Deo Gloria. Sure, yeah, and it's actually my favorite because of the fact that we as human beings so frequently take that glory onto ourselves, and that was what I wanted before I got saved, was to be the one that's getting the glory. And so the reason I love this doctrine so much is because it is actually our full purpose of existence. Like, regardless of whether or not you are saved or not, like whether or not your punishment was placed on Christ on the cross, or whether or not you will face eternal damnation because of your sin, either way that glorifies God, because God is glorified and righteous in his just punishment of wicked sinners, and he is righteous and glorified in his mercy and kindness on wretched sinners that he saves. And so I love the Sola Deo Gloria because of the fact that it completely and totally destroys any kind of ego, or like Michelle Leslie has said, it's not Sola Deo ego, it's Sola Deo Gloria.
That was a good one.
That. Yes,
I love that. I love that. I totally agree. Sola Deo Gloria is definitely my favorite. I also like the phrase Sola Scriptura. I just think it sounds really cool. I love saying it. It sounds like you're speaking another language.
Yes,
it rolls off the tongue.
It is another
language. Love it.
Almost like you're speaking Latin. Like, so weird.
I love it. It sounds like a Harry Potter thing too to me.
It's true.
She uses a lot of Latin.
Do not send us messages.
Do not send us hate mail.
That is a fact that she uses lots of Latin. Okay, Becca's just stating a fact, okay? All of those spells are Latin.
Yes.
So.
These are not. These are amazing.
Yes.
I love every one of them.
What about the tulips? Which one?
Oh, tulips. Okay, so that's so hard for me. I love total depravity. I love knowing that that there's nothing good in me. Yeah. I think that was a huge epiphany for me when I was sick and, being told something horrible by someone. Yeah. It's funny how total depravity was like, there's nothing good in me. Yeah. God saved who he elects through his purpose and his glory. I love total depravity. Yeah. Everyone's on the naughty list.
I like that. And it makes a lot of sense too once you learn that. Like, it clears up a lot of things.
It does. Yeah, and you go, God's sovereign, I'm not.
I would probably have to go, like, if I had to pick one, it's like picking your favorite pet.
It is. I know.
Nobody wants to do that. But I do think I would probably have to go with unconditional elections, because this is definitely one of those doctrines, the doctrine of grace, that actually sets things apart, separates the biblical truths. And so, like, if you're willing to stand on the full counsel of God's word, that one is going to separate you from people who are uncomfortable with these doctrines.
Yeah.
And I understand that, because there was a time when I was uncomfortable with these doctrines, but that is scriptural, that election is in the Bible. It's something that we may not like it, and I understand that, but it's scripturally true.
Yes.
So I like that one for that.
I do too. There's so many. All of them are so good. I'm like, which one?
I know, right?
Which one? Ooh, what's the next question? Ooh, Kathy Bruce asked, can I use last name? Is that okay?
I think so.
Okay. Kathy, what are your favorite go-to Reformed theology books besides the Bible, of course? So
I love that she added that last part. Like,
yeah, I know.
Don't just say Bible. That's cheap.
Right? I'm curious to know yours, because I'm like, so for the last 2 years, if anybody knows, I've been in school, and I haven't had as much time to read, and I've been dealing with chronic pain and like other stuff. So it's hard to read when you have like a migraine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can't even listen to a book at that
I know.
point. Like,
I could barely watch YouTube. Like that was hard. But I was also in school at the same time. But I'm curious to know yours.
Okay. So my favorite Reformed theology books, there's two of them, but actually the first one, it's going to be the Institutes, Calvin's Institutes. There is a shorter abridged version. If you're like wanting to dip your toes into it, I haven't read the shorter abridged version because I didn't know it existed. Right. So I read the long
full version.
Yes, the full version. It's 4 books actually. And so it's really kind of interesting. It started out as a really small, like 96-page little thing. And as the years went by, he kept adding to it. And it's massive now. But that's definitely the first thing I would recommend any believer. If you're wanting to, like, if you're new to the faith and you want to understand the faith, if you like, it's got his name on it. So everybody is like, oh, this is Calvinism and everything. And that's true. But there's nothing in there that's going to be, like weird or out of scripture. Like the whole book, all 4 books of it is purely biblical. And what it is actually like a primer to the faith. And so he wrote this as a way of explaining what the Christian faith is, where all these things are in the Bible. So it's a very great place to start if you're a new believer. And then I actually love the 10 Commandments by Thomas Watson, Thomas Brooks. Thomas Watson. I think it's Watson. But yeah, those are my two favorites. The Thomas Watson's 10 Commandments, actually something that I read a couple of years ago. It is amazingly fantastic. Like, I
heard Justin was saying that too, right? Justin Peters.
Yeah, that is really good stuff. So if you really want to just glory in God's truth, the 10 Commandments is a book that, like, it's just beautiful. You will never look at the 10 Commandments the same after you read that book. So what about you?
I wrote this down. I can read things. I'm reading with my mentor a book called Trusting God by Jerry Bridges, and it's been really great in understanding about more of his sovereignty. And when things happen, because Lauren and I were talking about this with Nancy Percy about like I don't know if any other women can agree to this, but I just get more anxious as I'm aging, as I'm getting older. My anxiety seems to go up more. I don't know why that is.
I know, right?
My 20s, I didn't worry about stuff, but I hit my 30s and I got married, and I don't know what happened. So, but this book has been really great at understanding, just going, God's sovereign in this. God wouldn't put this in my path if it wasn't supposed to be there. And there's a trial coming, and I need to go through it. I need to suffer well. People need to watch you suffer well.
Right.
That's important. That's a really great book that I'm reading. I haven't finished it yet. We're still working through it. So it's like basically the whole half of the book is like chapters, but there's the rest of the half is Bible study questions to those chapters. So it's really big.
Nice.
Really great. So we go through those together, and I love having my mentor. I don't know if you're watching, but hi. I won't mention her name. Yeah, I won't mention her name, but I love her so much. Sorry, I'm still coughing. So sorry, guys. The Gospel Primer is something like
knock it off.
No, seriously. The Gospel Primer. No, it's the Gospel. It is the Gospel Primer. I would say Primer. I read it Primer, but it's the Gospel Primer by Milton Vincent. My husband and I read that as a devotional. I also really like. I don't read this, but I love listening to it. It's The Morning and Evening by Charles Spurgeon. It's on Spotify, and it's this really great British accent, Christopher Glenn. And he's British, and it sounds so cool. And sometimes there's like "Come Thou Fount" in the background for some of them, and it's so sweet to listen to before I go to bed.
That's awesome. I think audiobooks count. That's still reading.
Yeah, that's still reading, people. Patrick has some great questions you read. Right? One of the things that was like, I'm going to hand this over to you, Lauren. Help me with my big girl pants. Help me pull these on.
Big girl pants. Everybody get your big girl pants on. Except for the boys.
Big girl words.
Boys. No, I just happened to like recently be studying this, so it was kind of like perfect timing. But Patrick from The Cave to the Cross, Apologetics, if you're not watching that and listening to that podcast, I don't know what you're doing with your time. The recent interview that he did with the Economist was just mind blowing. I absolutely recommend that to the highest extent. So Patrick asks, with respect to prior to the Reformation, do you believe the church was an invisible remnant like in the exile periods and had proper Reformed beliefs? Or did the Roman Catholic Church have enough saved people that lived inconsistently with the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church to preserve Orthodox saving belief? The latter would assume the Roman Catholic Church had many believers. The former would support dispensational belief. The Revelation churches represent church time periods. I'm going to say something very, very, very third tier, guys. So I want you to remember that. I'm not a dispensationalist. So I love my dispies, okay? Don't get mad at me, but I definitely lean.
Break this word down, too.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, it's like, I need put my big girl pants on. I need help.
Yes. I definitely
vaguely know.
Post-mill. So these are words, these are things that like, this is end times kind of discussions. However, that being said, I actually do believe that this isn't like an if or, but more like a both and. And so actually there was never a time whenever we don't have a theologically solid church in existence. And so you have, outside of the Roman Catholics' reach at all times, there are believers that are in existence. And so there are also inside the Roman Catholic Church people who do believe in Scripture, and they are trying to reform the church from the inside out. Those are the people that we see, bright shining lights that were they were killed by the Roman Catholic Church. They were martyred. And so I think that there was both. There's never going to be a time whenever the gospel is not being proclaimed. The gates of hell will not prevail against the church. There's always a time whenever there's a real church out there. And so we see that in history. We see that happening with the different various groups outside of the Roman Catholic Church. But we also see that within the Roman Catholic Church that there is a point in time whenever, I believe it's Council of Trent, where they actually fully apostatize and basically big plate of pasta. They full on say preaching the actual gospel is anathema. That is the point whenever anyone still in the Roman Catholic Church at that point from then on out is going to be put in the position where they're either going to side with the scriptures on first tier issues or they're going to stay within the Roman Catholic Church. And that doesn't happen until the Council of Trent. So prior to that, there are plenty of people that we know of that are in the Roman Catholic Church. They don't have a different church to go to at the time. Churches were run by the state. And so they're in the Catholic Church. They don't agree with the Catholic Church. Some of them were very vocal. The vocal ones were usually burned at the stake. But we also have outside of the Roman Catholic Church's reach, churches that were not Roman Catholic that were teaching truth, churches that would call themselves Catholic in the framework of the word Catholic just simply means universal. So there would be a difference between a Catholic church back then and a Roman Catholic church. And that all, it doesn't happen all at once. There's not just all at once one full church that agrees with itself. It took a long time for the Pope to actually bring under submission all of the churches under their purview. So there was actually churches that would have claimed to be a part of the Roman Catholic Church that didn't agree with the Pope. And that happened for a long time. It happened. I mean, you even look at Martin Luther. He's coming to Rome because he thinks that this is where he's going to find truth. And he gets there, and what he finds is a bunch of priests who are involved in every type of debauchery. And so it was incredibly discouraging for him. But until he went to Rome, he did not know that was happening. We're not looking at a time period where there are cell phone videos of everything. So I think it is throughout church history, it's hard for us to look back and understand these points. These people were not actually aware of every little thing that was happening. And that's probably a good thing because, man, some of the stuff that happened was really gross. I'll just leave that to ex-Catholic for Christ to deal with because he's really good at that. So yeah, that would be my response to that one. Sorry for all of my disputes. I hope we didn't just lose half of our listeners. We love you guys.
Yeah, we love you guys.
We're totally learning. We don't know all things yet. So Patrick actually asked 2 questions because he wanted to add a silly one in there because his first one was so epic. So his second question is, if you were to rename TULIP without needing to figure out the acronym, if you didn't want to beforehand, what would you name it?
I have something.
What is it? I'm so excited.
Well, it's Doctrines of Grace, right? So I was like, DG.
What? Oh, I like that. I like it. If I could figure out the acronyms, I would want it to actually spell grace.
Okay. Follow that. But doesn't he say not to without needing to figure out the acronym?
Yeah. I still want it to spell grace. It would be so much easier to remember. But bacon is epic, and I wish that somebody else hadn't already done that because I love bacon. Bacon is delicious. Okay, shenanigans.
Shenanigans. Oh, we don't have a thing. Crazy hand. Shenanigans.
Yeah, crazy hand.
Spirit fingers.
That's the best thing that's ever happened on this show. Just kidding. I'm sorry, Justin Peters. You were here. So was Ray Comfort. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm going to stop talking.
We are blessed.
Yes.
We got them on. Now we're praying and hoping we can get Paul Washer on.
That's right. If you know Paul Washer, and I'm sure he watches us. So.
Yes, Paul Washer.
Obviously.
Get with our people. Tell your people to get with our people.
Yes. Have your people call Clementine, and she'll continue to be a dog and not know how to answer phones. So shenanigans. Okay. Do you have a silly question?
I do. Mine is, what movie would be greatly improved if it was made into a musical?
Ooh.
But it's not a musical.
That's a really good question.
Isn't it?
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Probably Breakfast at Tiffany's would be really cool as a musical. I think they could have all those old fashioned singing, the way that they used to sing back then. It was really pretty.
Yeah, a lot of Rodgers and Hammerstein type stuff.
Be really pretty.
Sound of Music, those kinds of
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Star Wars? Could we get a Star Wars?
I was kind of thinking what would Star Wars be like? Now I'm so interested to see that. As a musical.
I know. Somebody needs to do that.
So I love Drew Barrymore movies.
Oh yeah.
So many Drew Barrymore movies. But I'm really thinking Never Been Kissed, I think would be an amazing musical. You guys are welcome. The internet, Broadway, New York, you guys are welcome.
Take care of it. Do it. Do it.
Wouldn't it be so great? Yes. Josie Grossi. That is going to be
Josie Grossi.
Grossi.
Oh,
I'm not Josie Grossi anymore.
Oh my goodness. My silly question actually is a question that you mentioned the other day, and so I just totally stole it from you. What was the last YouTube rabbit hole that you fell down?
Okay. I have to be honest, right? Yep. It's the latest one I was looking up is about
lying is a sin.
I know. I have to share. So the last stuff I've been looking up into is veganism.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes, because I actually was a vegan for a year, and then
were you really? That's a really fascinating rabbit hole. How did you end up there? Like,
it prompted my sister and her husband and kids moved in here too. So my husband and I live with my parents, and so did they do as well. And so we're all one big family here, and it works. I don't know. Please don't send us hate mail. Please don't. Just don't. And she was going vegan, and she was telling me about stuff, and she's a nurse, and like I was shocked. I was like, you used to tease me as a vegan. Like I had my vegan card. Like I did not cheat except for my mom's fudge, pretty much. Like, and there were things at Disneyland I couldn't control. Okay, people. Yeah.
It's true.
I can't control what's in that veggie burger. And what's interesting watching these people, even vegan or keto, like it doesn't matter. What I notice the most is they're all scared. All these doctors, they're all scared of death.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing behind it. I'm looking at it like for chronic pain purposes, so that's why I look into it, but I don't look at it for longevity. I don't look at it for
right.
I don't think of it in that purpose. And they seem to be very like, this is what's going to keep you alive longer.
Yeah, we don't have to be afraid.
But we're not afraid, and we have the hope, and people don't have the hope.
I know, it's really sad. Okay, so what about a riddle?
Wait, what about you? What about your last rabbit trail? Either Wikipedia or YouTube or Google.
I almost got away with that.
I know. I almost was like, yeah, squirrel.
Okay, really, really quickly.
I shared my deep, dark secret.
I have been down the rabbit hole of Elon Musk's. The Neuralink videos are about there's these little threads that's already been approved by the FDA to put into people's brains. It helps with synopsis. It helps to for people who have like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, sort of that actually people who are paralyzed.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna think like people with strokes, people with
it helps with all of that. Yeah. So actually his version of it in the Neuralink, I know there's a lot of people that are really freaked out about this because it's like combining humanity with AI, and I understand that's really freaky for some people, but I'm just really excited, and the science behind this is amazing.
I love that.
It's 1,000 times stronger than the current FDA approved thing that they put in people's brains. They have sent text messages through thought with
no way
technology. Yes.
That's really cool. So I don't even need a phone anymore.
Right? Like that. And it's so exciting, I think, because there's so many people who can't move and they can't talk, and their brain is functioning perfectly fine. They just can't do these things. So they show a video of a woman who is a paraplegic. No, a quadriplegic, excuse me. And she is operating a robotic arm to give herself a drink of a drink through a straw with her thoughts.
Wow.
And that is amazing to me. So that's my rabbit hole. And
that's so cool.
Please don't send me.
I know. I think I've heard recently, tell me if I'm wrong, John MacArthur has said that what is it called? The mark of the beast is not like the chip.
Yes.
Or whatever everybody thought that
I'm so thankful. Okay, so what about a riddle?
Okay. What do elves learn in school?
Ooh,
because it's Christmassy time.
I like it.
All about the Christmas and the city.
What? Christmas in the city. Okay, listeners, let us know what the answers to that riddle. And so that's all for today, Humblebees. I hope you enjoyed our episode about words.
Yeah. Reformed lingo. What did I say earlier? Was it forny?
There you go. Funny, reformed, forny. There you go. All right, Humblebees, we love you. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, Humblebees. This is Tulips and Honey. Over and out.
I think that diamond still needs a little more polish.
Yeah.